Okay. Ooh, fix that mic a little bit there. All right, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson. I am a film critic for filminquiry.com, movieswithmark.com, and twincitiesgeek.com, and too many other places that I write for off and on. So this is our first big stream of 2023. So there's lots to cover. Been off for about a month, and there's been not as many big films to cover. There's a few that we need to get to that we will cover, but yeah, this is basically just a big catch up. A lot of new films. Well, actually, not so much catch up. Like there's a few films from last year, but anyway, on today's stream we'll be covering Knock at the Cabin, the latest M. Night Shyamalan film. We'll be telling you if there's a twist in it or not. We won't. I try not to do spoilers on it, just in case anyone's interested. We'll also be covering A Man Called Otto, the English adaptation of was it A Man Called Uwe? I think the Swedish film, starring Tom Hanks. We'll also be covering 80 for Brady, which comes out this weekend, which is about four women who go to the Super Bowl and funny things happen. We'll also be covering one that released last month, Plane, which is an action film involving an aircraft of some sort. And then we'll also be covering Megan, the most talked about film of last month, and then we will be covering the Academy Awards, talking about what's coming up, what do I think should win and what will win. Because I'll preface this by saying I don't vote for the Academy, but I do vote in like a number of like critics groups, and just in case you don't believe me, I've got all the for your consideration DVDs here to prove it. So I figured I'd weigh in since I've actually watched all of the big films. Like aside from like the shorts and the animated short films, which I kind of catch up on a little bit later. All the big stuff I have seen already. So I figured I'd weigh in on that. Let's see, I'll just say chat here quick. The Yokai Advisor says, is it bad that I liked 80 for Brady and I'm like 20 years old? I mean, not really. I mean, you can like older actors. I mean, hell, I love the the ensemble assembled. In fact, you know what? Since I was gonna start with Knock at the Cabin, but since like 80 for Brady is, I think it's it's this week. But since that one's coming out, I'll start with that one. But yeah, no, it's not bad. They're good actors. That's an impressive ensemble, you know. I mean, well, it's like I said, like you're 20 years old, I'm 37 years old, and I still like them. Okay, so let's see. I'll get up my notes here. Make sure I got it here. Okay. All right. Well, we'll start the review here in 3, 2, 1. So, 80 for Brady is based on a true story of 4 old women who went to the Super Bowl. Now, that premise doesn't sound like it would make for the best movie, because it would seem like it'd be like a fairly simple story. It feels like you would have to blow it up to make it more of an interesting movie. And that's kind of more or less what happens with this film adaptation of a bunch of women going to the Super Bowl. And to its credit, I kind of like that angle, because like they build up on like kind of like the wild nature of what you could kind of do on this road trip movie with this this powerful ensemble cast here, that it could work, it could be funny. It's just like, here's the thing, there's funny ideas, there's a great premise, I think, here. It's just not as explored as it could be, which is kind of a shame, because like there's a lot of great elements and a fun premise here that it kind of made me mad that it never really kind of took off, and it always just became more sweet and not as like wild as I thought it could be. And for a film that has, Guy Fieri and a hot wing eating contest and characters tripping out on drugs and losing tickets and having dance-offs, you'd think it'd be a lot more wild and exciting, and it just kind of goes through the motions. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'll give the film its time in court here. So the premise is, you have Lily Tomlin playing Lou, this woman who has recovered from cancer, and while she's recovering, she forms a love of football, and specifically with Tom Brady and the Patriots. And so all their best friends, they gather every Sunday around the television, and they all they all get excited and giddy, and they're huge Patriots fans. And they all have their unique personalities. Like, Lou is, kind of a little bit of afraid of death, having had a brush with cancer. You have Jane Fonda playing Trish, who is big into writing erotic fan fiction with football players. Like I said, funny stuff here. You have Rita Moreno playing Maura, this woman who has kind of like she's lost her husband, like her husband died, and she's having problems kind of placing her trust in other people and kind of being more independent for herself. So there's a goal for her to work towards there. And then of course you have Sally Field just being adorable as Betty, this nerdy woman who is having problems being a little bit more independent and assertive with herself. So a little bit of like mild goals, but there's funny stuff there. Like, you can see the elements of these characters and their clashing personalities and how much fun could be had with them. So one day, out of the blue, Lou decides that, you know what, let's not watch the Super Bowl this year. Let's go there. So they enter a contest and they supposedly win tickets. And once they get, like, I don't quite want to say it's a road trip movie because there isn't a whole lot that goes on. I mean, there's a little bit of a bit with them going through a retirement home just to get everyone out the door and onto the plane. But after that, it's pretty much just having fun around the Super Bowl, finding what funny stuff they can do, like going to parties, accidentally tripping out on drugs, losing the tickets, sneaking in, getting around security, all these little funny vignettes that I think work really well for this kind of this perfectly assembled ensemble. Because let's face it, like, there's an amazing range of talent here, and there's funny stuff that they pose, but it feels like there should be more. Like, at one point, Sally Field gets into a hot wing eating contest with Guy Fieri, and you think, oh, there's got to be some good stuff here. This is going to be fun, isn't it? And of course, the expected comedy that you would think would happen here, where it turns out that Sally Field can actually kick ass at eating hot wings over all these other younger people, that's a funny idea. It's just that it's not explored as much. Like, she does it like easily, and you're kind of like, it's like, okay, she's plowing through these wings just fine, and you're waiting for the punchline. You're waiting for it to happen. It's like, okay, this is good. This is building up to something. Where's it going? And eventually, much later in the film, they revealed that, she was faking it. Like, she felt everything. But it's like, that's a joke you land, like, right after that's done. It's like, you miss that window there. It's out. And there's a lot of scenes like that, too, where it feels like they miss the perfect opportunity for, like, the best punchline. And also, like, the right moments of, like, sincerity. Like, a funny development is, like, when they lose the tickets after the hot wing eating contest, and they search for it at a party, and they have to find a way to get into the Super Bowl the next day. Funny idea, but they kind of acquire the tickets a little bit, like, too quickly after that. Like, it's, like, you can kind of see, like, like the blocks that they've set up for these characters. And to their credit, these actresses, they're pitch perfect. They kind of just stroll through this film, and you kind of want to see them do that because then they're having fun, and it clearly looks like they are having fun in between these scenes, like where like Sally Field's eating hot wings, and you have Lily Tomlin throwing footballs and beating out some younger guy, and then of course there's some funny moments where she's talking to a hallucination of Tom Brady, which I was surprised how sincere they made those moments. It's like, for how many times this happens, you would think there'd be some ridiculous moment there. Just like where people kind of like side-eye her a little bit, or Tom Brady says something a little bit off color that she doesn't expect, but it's kind of within her memory. Something funny like that. But it sticks to its sweetness. And I guess that's kind of like my most mild gripe about the film is that it's too sweet. It's too sincere with these characters who are lovable and adorable, and you want to see them, for as farcical as it is, see them push their way into the Super Bowl and get to go back and like visit Tom Brady and exchange jerseys, and of course, part of this is based on a true story, so you got to believe a little bit into it. But it keeps all these elements, I think, to like I don't quite want to say like saccharine, because it doesn't feel like, oh, okay, you're trying to be sweeter. It's like, no, there's a genuine sincerity that comes off in those scenes. It's just that it feels like this is trying to be like a wild adventure, and it has everything in place for it to be one of those types of films, and then never quite gets into the realm of laughs. Like, it's always in the realm of smiles. Like, you're always. There wasn't a moment where I wasn't like in love with what these actresses were doing, and just seeing them on the screen was always a treat. It just felt like there should be more for them to do. It's like, you give Jane Fonda, this great character who reads erotic football fiction, and you want to see more of that. Like, you could have had like so much fun just like running through a whole bunch of her different book ideas and covers and just reading more of like her entries. You get a little bit of that, but not enough where I feel like, like it's a great bit to run with. And also because like there doesn't feel like a culmination moment in this adventure too. It always feels like, okay, this section's for Lily Tomlin, this one's for Jane Fonda, this one's for Rita Moreno, and this one is for Sally Field. And then like maybe they'll have some peppering of their arcs in between each scene, but it mostly feels like this just one scene for each one of these great actresses. That it feels like you kind of got to like relish the scenes where they are together, because those are really fun and adorable scenes. That you wish they took off a little bit more, because like I said, so much of what happens in this film, it almost comes off like inexplicable and kind of like misses opportunities for comedy. Especially when you have like, I believe there's what's her name from Roseanne is in this. What's it? The daughter from Roseanne plays Lou's mother, and she's in like 2 scenes just to like kind of stress that Lou needs to like face up to like her own mortality a bit, that she's kind of running from in the Super Bowl, which like I said is good stuff that you can build on, but it doesn't really feel it only feels like they're covering the bare essentials here, where it's like, this is a good idea, it's a good cast, and parts of this really work, but it just frustrates me that it never takes off. It never culminates everything, and it just ends up being like a series of funny scenes with these great actresses that are funny, but not like okay, that's a big belly laugh scene. And I kept waiting like for just like one little moment, just like I started laughing a little bit. Maybe like I'm willing to admit there might be a little bit of a generational divide here. This is obviously meant for a much older audience, and the older audience I saw it with, they were digging it a lot more. And I'm sure that a lot of people are just gonna go see this film just because they love the talents assembled. And to its credit, I would say if that's a reason you're going to go see this film, that's the perfect reason, because that is the best part of this film. However, if you're expecting, a better, like a good comedy script to like come together for them, that sadly isn't the case here. And you're mostly just watching these great actresses just kind of basically just flex, just go through the script and just flex how good they are at like effortlessly having chemistry and charm with each other when they're served up comical scenes that don't quite land. And you would think a film where Rita Moreno is tripping out on drugs and seeing everybody's face as Guy Fieri and wandering into a charity poker game would be hilarious. And it's like, the idea makes me smile and laugh, but outside of that, it doesn't really build on it the way that I like it to. And the sad thing is, like, I hate to say it, this is one of those films where all the funniest parts are in the trailer. Like, if you saw the trailer where they showed Guy Fieri's head after Rita Moreno is tripping out on drugs, that's the extent of that joke, basically. So that it's sad to report, but hey, you know what? If for as much as I can't quite recommend the film, I would say that it was still fun just to see these actresses again, even if they're kind of given a script that doesn't really give them as much to do. Like, it definitely gives them enough. It definitely gives them some room to have fun with the material, but it just like I've seen them better before, and they can. So this is just kind of like a mild smile-worthy comedy, but just so frustrating because it's never quite takes off the way it does. I was gonna say it never makes a touchdown, but I'm not gonna put that in a review. Screw that. I'm not gonna play into that. I'm not playing that game. I'm above such cheap shots. Let's see. I watched for Lily Tomlin, but all the other actors I was really surprised about. Yeah, actually, there's a number of I probably should mention more in the view, but there's a number of other like decent comedic talents assembled here. Like you have I keep mispronouncing his name. Ron Funches, who you might remember. He's done voices on which cartoons? Like the Harley Quinn show. He did the voice of King Shark. He's been on a bunch of other cartoons. He's okay. He's a security guard. He's all right. What else? There are a few other. There's Rob Corddry is playing like a Patriots radio host, which is kind of funny. Billy Porter is adorable as kind of like the dance coordinator for the few scenes you see him. That was Billy Porter, wasn't it? No, wait. I'm thinking of. Shoot, I think I might be thinking of someone else there. No, wait. That it was Billy Porter. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I kept doubting myself when I watched like is that Billy Porter? There's a few. There's also Patton Oswalt is in the film. I think he's playing himself. I think because there's a charity poker event, but they only refer to him as like Brisket in like a mocking nickname. So it could be any of them. And of course, like I said, Guy Fieri as himself. It's surprising though. You would think that they'd give Guy Fieri much funnier stuff to do, and it's just kind of like the whole joke's just like, hey, it's Guy Fieri, you know. Yeah, I'd say like if you look at the trailers and you know the type of audience that this is going to play to, it's pretty much what you expect, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like I can't quite recommend it, but I can't get mad at it either because this is it. It pretty much delivered what it promised. And if that's the case, how could you be that mad at it, you know? Okay, let's see. What should we get to next here? Maybe we should cover a worse film, just so that we can wash that taste out. Before I quit the theater, what I saw was audience mostly old women who saw the book club. Oh, actually, there's another film on here that I saw with an entire old crowd that I'll mention. January is old people movie season. It really, I guess it. Well, I guess it is. Yeah, because you have like the Oscar bait that usually comes out. Like Women Talking and Living are definitely films that are going to appeal to a much older audience, I think. But yeah, then you have stuff like A Man Called Otto, which I'll review later, and then 80 for Brady. It's old people month. And if you think back to it, yeah, pretty much a lot of January movies are kind of targeted at older people. The I hate using the word, but like the more saccharine ones, you know. Okay. Time to review Plane. Sounds like it's a punishment. Alright, here we go. Yeah, it's... This one isn't going to be as fun as I thought. Alright, so here we go in 3, 2, 1. So Plane is a movie about a plane that crash lands, and then dangerous things happen to it. This sounds like such like a simple plane. It's like, okay, what's going to happen in this film? It's plane. It's about a plane. So, and the thing is, this film. Here's the thing. Like I could kind of dig on this premise. You know, it's a plane that goes down in enemy territory, and they have the commercial flight crew and the passengers have to fight their way out of a war-torn situation. That could lead to some exciting stuff, and it just having the plane crash itself could be exciting as well. Unfortunately, Plane doesn't really do a lot of like the it kind of just puts in the bare minimum to kind of get to those more exciting scenes, because to the film's credit, the best thing I can say is that the climax does have an exciting sequence where the plane is trying to take off and people are shooting at the plane, and somebody gets taken out with landing gear. That's an exciting scene. However, everything else that we have to build up to get to that exciting moment just kind of feels like it's like almost not even that it's going through the motions, just kind of that it's just kind of like a retread. Like, for starters, you have Gerard Butler playing Brody Torrance, a commercial airline pilot, who they give him all like the essentials for this type of scenario. He's got a daughter that he's trying to get home to. He's got one last flight that he's got to make before he can spend time with her. He has a history of attacking passengers. He has problems relating with people. He struggles to maintain his plane. So we have all that great setup for him to become the action star here. As if it weren't obvious that you have Gerard Butler as the pilot here. Then you also have you have his co-pilot who's like, he's a little bit not quite like plucky, but he's like trying to get used to the way that Brody does his own work on the plane. And then you have a number of passengers who range from just like stock people who will be killed off during like one of the violent exchanges, as well as just like that one passenger who won't shut up. That one passenger who feels entitled that even when the chips are down and that their lives are at risk, he's still going to keep talking and talking and talking. So the plane, through like an error made by the airline, they are pushed through a storm that knocks out the plane and sends them crashing into an island on the Philippines that is currently, that is currently occupied by rebel forces that have guns, and they're taking hostages whenever they can and just, stocking up on resources. So it's a dangerous situation. They crash the plane. They're with in a little bit of a thrilling sequence. I would say it's thrilling if it weren't for the camera and the lighting. And here's the thing. I'm willing to admit that this might be a part of the way that the film was screened, but based on what I saw, the lighting was way too dark for this. Like, I get this, that they're cutting power to stress, like, the danger here, but having like the entire crash sequence where like the cabin is in darkness doesn't really work, because they want to showcase that there are two deaths during the plane crashing, when like people get launched out of their seats, and you're so in the dark that like, and because we haven't really gotten like the best introduction of these characters, you're trying to like peer on like, okay, wait, who got hurt? Who died here? Are they dead? I can't quite see what it could have. I'm willing to admit that it could have been the lighting. Like, projectionists do tend to turn down the lighting for some screenings, but the camera work was a little bit like clunky here, where I couldn't quite get into it because it was so hard to watch it. Like, and even like the scenes where it takes place outside of the plane, where you thought, okay, exterior shots, you've got to have better lighting for this, because it's all visual effects, and it's still too dark where you can't tell what's going on. Like, my goodness, it's not off to a good start, and it doesn't get that much better, especially like, and the thing is, I was hoping this would be a buddy action comedy, because you have Brody Torrance teaming up with a criminal on board, who's being extradited, and so the criminal has to decide, like, I'm in a tough situation with y'all. I'm gonna use my skills, and I'm gonna fight back with Gerard Butler. And you think, like, okay, you have a commercial pilot who's bitter about working for the airlines, and a prisoner who has a bit of a history. Now, that premise is a great idea to kind of build them up and have this buddy dynamic, but they have like next to no chemistry in this. It's like, once they get to like realizing they need to survive, they're all business. All they do is talk about finding a way to get out, finding a way to survive. And true to that, like, if this were real life, yeah, you probably wouldn't form that much of a bond with the prisoner, just like try to survive. But when you have, like when you have Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter, who plays Lewis on the plane, when you have those two characters together on the poster, and you see most of the action scenes with them together, punching out rebels and shooting them up, and making like this daring escape on a plane, you want to see them connect. You want to have like some connection to them, so that you're invested in seeing them take off. Aside from just like the bog standard of, Brody's got a daughter that he's got to get home to, which is like, that's a decent drive, but if you want to keep us invested throughout, especially since you don't see that much of the daughter, she plays like a minor role in, having phone contact. You want to see that connection between those two characters. And just like, the reason that I think like it, like with the crash sequence, it might be a problem with lighting too, is because there's a lot of moments that technically they just look terrible. In particular, there's one of the first scenes where Gerard Butler fights with one of the rebel forces. It's in a building where they have this knockdown drag-out fight where they're punching each other, they're strangling each other, they're throwing them on desks, and I think like the choreography is staged okay, but they wanted to film this as kind of like that, like one continuous shot of just trying to get the camera as close as they could as possible for this fight while rarely cutting. And I don't think it quite works for the scene, especially when it feels off, because like it feels like they didn't get this fully through post-production, because the sound here just feels like what they picked up during the fight and not putting in like the extra like kind of like crunching and like the force and like the cracking of bones to make it more intense. It feels like the raw footage you would see of that fight before it's been like cleaned up, when you push it out in the final cut. So that was like I just stood there like baffled watching this, going like, what? This is like a decent fight, but why isn't it? Why is the camera so close? And why didn't they do like? Why didn't they have some cutting here? Why does the sound not feel like it's finished in this scene? What's going on? So you have all that build up, and it's like like I said, there's some. The fight could be good. There's another scene where Michael Coulter is running around smashing rebels with a sledgehammer, which is kind of cool. But they kind of cut away, and they don't let those violent moments linger as long as they should to make them more exciting. Not to mention like the ultimate climax of the film just has Lewis and Brody they just go their separate ways like quickly. There's not even like a knowing moment where they're just kind of like, one of us has got to stay behind, or like, this is where we part ways. It's just, Lewis finds it out. He's still a criminal. He's just going to make it on his own. And he just kind of leaves kind of unceremoniously in this film, which is a real letdown. You would think that those two characters would have more to do instead of just, business as usual as they kind of stroll through this passive action picture. Which sucks because, like I said, the climax is actually really intense. I like watching like kind of this plane make this daring takeoff when they've got like, barely any fuel and the electronics are barely working, and there's gunfire and explosions and rocket launchers and rebels and trucks and cars just like zooming towards them. That's a great setup, and there's, to its credit, there's some decent violence in that scene. But then immediately after that scene, we get like kind of like the bog standard, like, oh, I'm coming home, baby, like the very cliche action moment here. And if the film really just wanted to be action cliches, I could buy into that if it weren't for the fact that like technically there's a lot of elements that feel off here, and a lot of the actors are just kind of phoning it in where like, I'm barely invested in what they're doing, with the exception of I'm trying to remember like the name of the actor who is it. Tony Goldwyn, I think, is a special forces operator who comes in to kind of like manage another team who will come in and give some firepower to Gerard Butler. I actually liked his character, even though all he does is just sit in a room and bark orders at people. Like, it feels like of all the performances, his is the best because he's like the only one putting some effort into this role and actually giving some personality and character here. Whereas Butler, he's just doing the same character that he always does in action films. And Mike Coulter is just not given much to do. Like, aside from action scenes, he's mostly kind of silent. His dialogue is nothing. There's rarely a moment where it's like, you can kind of connect with him or you kind of like dig his attitude. Like, even his stoic nature just doesn't quite exude like a certain level of like kind of like intimidation or cool that you would expect from that type of role. So it's like, I hate to use it, but you know what? screw it. I'm just gonna say it. Plane doesn't take off. There. I said it. I made my peace. I know I said I'm better than that for 80 with Brady. I'm not gonna demean my. I'm not gonna hold back for Plane. Plane doesn't deserve anything better than it. It's not a good movie. Made me think of that Michael Bay film that came out with Sonic 2. Oh, were you talking about Ambulance? See, at least here's a. What's that? I'm pretty sure it was Ambulance that came out around that time, wasn't it? Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people, like, script-wise, I think Ambulance is a mess. But I will give it this. Like, Michael Bay at least knows how to shoot, like, chase scenes and fight scenes here. Like, at least, like, that was the best thing I loved about Ambulance. Like, look, if you're going to have action sequences and car chases, you've got to make them look cool. And the fact that he actually, like, did some experimental work with drones and kind of, like, forced them in all these cool shots is pretty cool. I have to admit that. Like, I couldn't get into the character as much as I could. Like, there's enough twists where I was invested with what was happening in Ambulance. And technically, I like the way it looks. But yeah, like, it has some problems. It's just, like, I think it's, like, the metric of how you look at, like, Michael Bay films. Like, it's leagues better than, like, his other, like Transformers movies and, like, what's some other ridiculous, like 13 Hours. It's way better than those. Like, it's higher up here. It's not a great film, I'll tell you that. Yeah, the script is a bit of a mess, and the characters you can't get into as much, but the action sequences, I mean, it's a Michael Bay film. That's kind of usually what the metrics of what you go. And after so many Transformers films where you could never tell what was happening in those films, it's nice that he's using drones that are, like, you know, like steady controlled cameras that zoom through the sky instead of just, you know, like handheld shaking the camera all over the place and all that. So yeah. I understand why people don't like Ambulance. It's just like it's a better Michael Bay. It's if we're gonna get more Michael Bay films, I would prefer that he kept doing these and not just Transformers movies. And I'm aware that we are getting more Transformers movies, so we'll deal with that as it comes. Okay. Now let's talk about something a little bit sweeter. I don't know why I said it that way. I thought it would be funny. Okay. All right. I'll get some water to here. All right. Here we go with A Man Called Otto in 3, 2, 1. So, A Man Called Otto is the American remake of the Swedish film A Man Called Ove. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's been a while since I've seen that film. This is a fairly sweet film about an old guy who decides that kind of his life is over and thinks that, you know, the only way out now is just to kill himself, but keeps holding off on that suicide because all the people in his neighborhood kind of need him for one thing or another, and he realizes that life is worth living for a little bit longer. So it's more or less kind of like the same as like the 2015 film. I think it came out in 2015. And the thing is, it has a lot of the same things that I liked and disliked about the original Swedish film. The main thing that I disliked is that it just felt like that the film was just kind of meandering a little bit too much. Like, it was just kind of like spinning its wheels, trying to find stuff for the old guy to do, and that it didn't quite like come together as much as I'd like it to. That it just meandered a little bit too much. And this American version kind of does that too. Although I gotta admit, like, I think here's the thing: like, a great performance can actually like boost up a film to make it like a little bit more better. And I actually kind of like A Man Called Otto a little bit more than the Swedish version, just because I think the sincerity and the chemistry works a little bit more here, that I was a bit more invested. Like there's still the the saccharine and corny moments that came with it, but they're a little bit easier to swallow just because I think the performances work so well. And that's mainly because the central character of Otto is played by Tom Hanks. And Hanks just makes this role work so well. He's he's perfectly portrayed as this like grumpy guy who wants nothing to do with anybody. He just inhabits this role so well. And I think it's because like you're kind of like used to like seeing Tom Hanks usually as kind of like a little bit more of like a chipper person, even though you know he can go like angry and bitter. And it was interesting to see that side of him again in this type of film, just because just the way he carries himself and how he mutters and makes these kind of like eyebrow raising expressions are just so wonderful that you just can't get enough of them. And it makes you feel for him, where, you know, after, you know, he's been let go from the plant and he doesn't like anyone in his neighborhood. He, you know, his wife died long ago and he feels like all the opportunities are gone. To have these small moments come for him where you realize like, okay, you know, our neighbors, they need some tools, or they need their furnace fixed, or, you know, one of them needs to learn how to drive. You know, I'm gonna, you know, sure, I'll come to their aid and I'll make it work. And yeah, and there's in terms of like changing the original story, there's of course there's a few aspects of it that they Americanize to make it more relatable. They also update it more to make it seem like more relevant. Like at one point, in order to save the block, they have to get in touch with like a social media journalist. And one of the most interesting aspects, I was surprised that they changed and actually made it a little bit more progressive and kind of like gave it a reason to kind of like remake the story, is that in the original story, discriminated against, and the old guy just takes him in and, you know, just says, okay, you know, nobody should treat you that way. In this film, Otto takes in a young trans kid who was kicked out of his, you know, parents' house for being trans, and he has a relationship with Otto's wife, who is a teacher, who is apparently the first person to actually call Otto by not someone joked when like I told him like A Man Called Otto is, you know, very pro transgender, and so that, oh, does Otto become Otto woman or something? It's not like that, no. But no, it was sweet that, you know, like this young trans kid realized like, oh, you know, your wife, you know, taught me, and she was the first to address me the way I wanted to be treated. And so, you know, you get to like love Otto a little bit more as like he realized that, you know, you need to treat human beings with respect. Like, you know, he still hates his best friend for, you know, going with a different car model, which is petty, but it's kind of a relatable old guy thing, you know. But that I like that, you know, Otto just is fascinated and just, you know, very compassionate, where he lets down that grumpy facade slowly as the film goes on. In between all those like dark moments where he is contemplating suicide, he gets closer, and then he's kind of like pulled back by thinking about his wife. Which are, I'm surprised. I liked how there was kind of like a little bit of like an earnest nature to going through scenes that I felt could have been, you know, that could have misfired. And to their credit, they are a little bit like corny with trying to stress how, like, you know, Otto needs to keep living and that he needs the spirit of his wife to keep going. But after a while, it kind of worked its magic on me, where I'm kind of like, okay, I can kind of dig where this is going. Like, it's Otto trying to do the right thing and having him be fascinated by realizing there's more to this life than just being grumpy and angry at everybody. Kind of works here. For as simplistic as it is, I like seeing Tom Hanks kind of like slowly warm up to everybody, especially when, you know, especially considering like he has this condition where he has an enlarged heart, which is going to like, you know, lessen his lifetime. And do not think the film is above making the obvious joke here with him, you know, with him having a cold heart and it being big, and you get it. They go about it. And to its credit, there's some genuinely funny stuff here, and the film's kind of like curmudgeon-y ways. Like at one point, Tom Hanks gets really pissed off at a hospital clown for taking his favorite quarter, which is it's equal parts silly and sincere, because obviously, as we learn later, the quarter means a lot to him. Like, it was like a keepsake of his wife and something that he treasures deeply. But at the same time, it's funny just to watch Tom Hanks get really angry at a clown. So it works. It kind of works on both levels. It's like, for the sincerity and the absurdity of it's surprisingly sweet, that I think it actually works a little bit more than the original, and mostly just because the other characters are so lovable. Like, his neighborhood is just filled with the best people that, even when they have a history with him, they kind of like tolerate him. You have these new neighbors and young people who are just kind of eccentric. They always want to talk to him. They always want to be there for him. They bring him meals. They're kind and heartwarming. And it's a lovable film that, it has a little bit of like, like the progressivism that you'd like to see in this type of story. It has some fine performances, and just it has as corny as it sounds, it has a good heart. And, for having that genuine nature, for as corny as it get at times, it mostly kind of works. And oddly enough, like, a lot of people are just, not oddly enough, it's Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is on the poster. A lot of people are going to go this just to see his performance. And he kind of knocks it out of the park here. It's pretty damn sweet. And I actually fell for it. Like, after like halfway through, I was like, okay, this is good, but it's not really getting me. And then the more I went, it's like, okay, you know what? This kind of worked. I'm kind of digging this. It's sweet. It's heartfelt. I could sense a lot of people in the audience were getting a little bit choked up towards the end there. And it's just, yeah, it's a generally heartwarming film that I think works a little bit better than the Swedish version. So there's a reason to watch this remake. I often say that too. There's a lot of like American remakes where it just feels like it's the same story and doesn't really add anything to it and doesn't really improve on it. Like, I talked about this a few months ago when I was reviewing Living, which was the not American, it's the British adaptation of Ikaru, and it mostly goes through the same motions as the original, the same story. We're just kind of like, okay, I'm feeling the same stuff here, but it doesn't really feel like there's like any shift of like it just feels like I'm watching Ikaru again. And thankfully, A Man Called Otto didn't feel like that, so I gotta give it credit for that. Yeah, it was based on a book too. It was based on a book that was made into a movie in Sweden, and then another movie with A Man Called Otto. And here's the thing, with Yokai Advisor in the chat here. Like I said, in terms of old people, I saw this film at a this is a little bit of like how the sausage is made here, but usually when I go to like public preview screenings, they're generally sponsored by a particular venue to try to promote it. So with A Man Called Otto, it's obviously appealing to old people, so it was sponsored by AARP, which, for those who are outside America and don't know, AARP is basically it's an old people organization. It gets it gives old people information. It gives them stuff to do, and one of the things they do is they give old people like preview tickets to screenings for special films that would appeal to them. So I was watching A Man Called Otto in a theater, just wall to wall old people all around me, and I found it very very fascinating that when the film got to the moment where Otto talks to the transgender kid, there wasn't like an eye batted in there. Like nobody groaned, nobody complained. And here's the thing, I have heard people groan and complain whenever there's like a trans character or a gay character involved. It's not as often as you think. It's usually with much younger people. But yeah, just it was kind of neat just to see, just a whole bunch of old people just like kind of dig on a Tom Hanks and just like having this kind of improvement to the story. It was charming. It's charming. It's definitely not going to be like my favorite film of the year, just because I feel it's a little bit too corny. And like I said, it does meander a bit and kind of spin its wheels a little bit more than I think it should. But yeah, it's sweet. it's it's January. Having a nice little heartwarming film to come out in January is fine. It's good. All right. So what do we got next? Well, we covered a much older film that came out, so let's cover one coming out this weekend. Cover Knock at the Cabin. All right, the new film from M. Night Shyamalan, which I know you're all excited for. All right. Sorry, just trying to clear my throat here. All right. So here we go. Let me get my notes up here. And in 3, 2, 1. So, Knock at the Cabin is the latest film from M. Night Shyamalan. And I know the immediate thing most people are going to be thinking. They're going to be thinking, okay, it's M. Night Shyamalan. What's the twist here? What's the ridiculous left field twist that's coming in with this type of film? And here's the thing. Maybe this is a little bit of a spoiler, so maybe I'll kind of preference this with like mild spoilers. But here's the thing. There is no obvious, like, there is no kind of like bizarre twist that comes with this film. Because here's the thing. I was talking with someone who told me that, this film was based on a book. And the book itself has a premise that is, it's meant to be very ambiguous. It's meant to keep you in the dark where you're not quite sure what's happening, and and just kind of like build up the suspense where you're not, that even by the end you're not quite sure what exactly went down. And that's not typically the type of story that you think of with M. Night Shyamalan, because usually his films always kind of have some tactile explanation within that twist towards the end to try to like make sense of it all. And thankfully, to his credit, it may be a little bit of spoiler here, but like thankfully to the film's credit, it doesn't quite feel like there is that big twist in it. So the premise of the film is that this married couple, Eric and Andrew, have adopted their daughter Wen. And they are vacationing in a cabin. And while they're there, they are... Oh my god. Sorry, I just... Oh, sorry, we're gonna have to reset this. Oh my god. Sorry, it's cold. It's cold here. It's February. And unlike that Simpsons episode, this is not an unusually warm February. All right. So, take 2. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. So, Knock at the Cabin is the latest film by M. Night Shyamalan. And you're probably wondering, is there a twist here? It's an M. Night Shyamalan film. There's got to be a twist. And here's the thing. There kind of isn't a twist here. Well, not really. So, like, this whole story is all about kind of, like, more about keeping the viewer in the dark with, like, the ambiguity. And apparently, from what I've heard, based on the novel that Shyamalan is adapting here, the book is more or less that. It's just keeping you in the dark and just kind of, like, embracing the ambiguity of the situation, which Shyamalan is known for starting with in most of his films, and then usually by the end he has some like bizarre or very tactile twist at the end there. And this film, Knock at the Cabin, is actually quite different. And I think that's really great because it highlights what Shyamalan does best, which is building up the suspense of a scenario where you don't quite have all the answers. And it works so well here. So the premise is that a married couple, Eric and Andrew, and their adopted daughter, Wen, are staying at a cabin on vacation. And then one day, they are visited by 4 strangers, played by Dave Bautista, Nikki Akuma Bird, Abby Quinn, and Rupert Grint, who we haven't seen in quite some time. I think the last film he's in was Moonwalkers, but I could be wrong. Like he's definitely been in a few different projects since Harry Potter, but anyway, so the four strangers show up and they tell the family that they believe that the world is going to come to an end, and the only way to prevent it is if one person in this family of three kills themselves. That one of them has to go, otherwise the world is going to end. And the strangers try to make this like they don't quite want to like force them to do that. They want to make it seem believable, so they try to stress their point. They try to be as compassionate as they can. They try to be calm and explain it. I love the fact that Dave Bautista, who's like the biggest guy among them, is trying to be the most heartfelt and sincere and trying to like beg these people to understand, but at the same time, like, you know, the couple, like they don't believe them. Like they learn that, like, you know, these people all thought they had religious visions and that they all connected on a message board, and they think they're just making this up just so that they can, you know, have one person in this coupling kill themselves because they're like against gay people because they've experienced that discrimination. But at the same time, there's this questioning, like, is like with each like kind of like passing few hours, one of the strangers will die. Like they will willingly sacrifice themselves. They'll die, and then after they die, a tragic event will happen that affects the rest of the world. Like there'll be an earthquake, there'll be a tidal wave, there'll be an outbreak, like planes will fall from the sky, horrible stuff will happen. And the couple is still trying to think like, okay, well, maybe they planned this out. Maybe this, like, they have to have planned this out. Like, there's no way. And later they learn that, oh, wait, one of them is someone who discriminated against us. But at the same time, they're thinking like, well, because like one of them has a concussion, and they're thinking maybe they are telling the truth, or are we hallucinating it? Or is the world going to come to an end if we don't kill one of them or not? And even by the end of the film, where a resolution is reached, jackpots on the internet. And I love how they set that up, because the thing is, the film is set up where like you could see where M. Night Shyamalan would put in that explanation for what's really going on here. And that, like, because it could really either go one of two ways, or it could just go in a much more bizarre left field, you know, laugh it up ending. And thankfully it doesn't. The tension mounts so well here, where you're constantly questioning whether or not the world is going to end, you know, if this scenario doesn't happen, and who is manipulating who in this scenario. And I love the tension that builds up here. I love the camera work that gets really up close and uncomfortable with these characters, especially for the first few shots in this film are kept very, very close to the face. There's lots of close-up shots that are very disorienting and create this kind of like creepy feeling where basically you don't have all the answers, and the more that it keeps going, it feels like everyone else doesn't know the answers either. Where it leads to there are some like showdowns. There's some pretty violent exchanges as like the couple try to escape amid these people who seem like desperate extremists who really believe that the world is going to end. And the more that it keeps going, the more you kind of believe them, but at the same time you're just like, you don't want to believe them, because like definitely like there's a lot to munch on with this film in terms of its themes, beyond just like the discrimination and the conspiracy theories that brew online. There's also I think like a more explicit theme, I think, that gets stated more towards the third act about accepting humanity and its faults and trying to like realize empathy. Like a little bit of that theme is stated quite bluntly in the first act of the film, but towards the end of the film it becomes way more blunt and way more on the surface. And for some people, I know they're going to hate this. I know they're going to hate that, like, you know, they make the themes very upfront and obvious about, you know, how, you know, okay, these four people who came here, they kind of represent, you know, like the four horsemen of the apocalypse and all that. But I like that. I think it works here for the way that Shyamalan directs here, because it always keeps the audience tuned in with the themes. Like, it's never kept like vague enough or like, you know, kind of all that up in the air that a lot of the audience is going to get lost on it. that I think it works here in making a film that doesn't just give you like a satisfying answer by the end, like a clear explanation for that. Like even some people are going to walk out of this film and they're going to think, okay, I know exactly what was happening, and I do believe these characters were in the right. But then there's other elements you got to consider, like, okay, well, but no, it doesn't quite seem that way as well. And this kind of leads, like, the ending itself, I was kind of like going back and forth on, because here's the thing, like the premise itself is great. The ambiguity, I love it. I love the tension and all that mounts in the film. But when you get up to the final scene, I feel like you really gotta stick it to make this story complete here. And I feel like Shyamalan mostly gets it. I'm a little bit, like, I'm fairly satisfied with the ending in terms of like maintaining a certain level of the ambiguity while stressing more of the themes. But also there's a little bit of like an off tone towards the end there, where it feels like this type of film should still end with terror. And it kind of ends a little bit too, not too neat, but almost kind of like too much more content than I think it should be for like these bigger themes. But that being said, for having that much to munch on, and, for the many debates that are going to follow with this film about, were the conspiracy theorists right? Was the apocalypse coming? Or was the couple right? Was this just, crackpots who were just, have lost their minds? And you're going to get a lot of discussion on, what actually went down here. And I love that. I love that, like, an M. Night Shyamalan film is not just like, a simple twist to wrap everything together in a little bit of like a ridiculous closure bow for this type of story. I like the fact that there are going to be people who are going to come out of this film, and they are going to be talking about, who is in the right, and they are going to have like debates over, what really went down by the end of this film. And for an M. Night Shyamalan film to do that and not just be like, oh, okay, I know what was happening here, and then just reveal the twist to everyone, I love that. Not to mention the camera work here, I love it. I love how they hold on shots that are creepy where they're dragging bodies out of the cabin, and how the camera holds on like the weapon as it comes down onto like someone's head, and the very creepy way that the cult kills itself off by like, concealing their faces and then saying humanity will be judged. That's all staged brilliantly. That's what I love so much. Like this film highlights everything that Shyamalan does great in his films and kind of lets them linger. It's weird because I almost kind of would have preferred that that he went even a little bit, maybe even a little bit like blunter in his themes by the end, just to kind of hammer it home a little bit more. But for what the film is, for just mounting the tension here and always keeping the audience in the dark, that's a really good film. This is definitely the best M. Night Shyamalan film I've seen in quite some time. So yeah, Knock at the Cabin. That is currently playing in theaters this weekend. Is it? Yeah. It should be in all theaters this weekend. It is coming out from Universal Pictures, so it will probably be on Peacock. Trying to guess when it might be. Probably March. Probably end of March, early April, I would say. It will probably be on Peacock if you're looking for it. I say probably because it'll depend on, I think, how well the film does, Like, if it does really well and it stays in there, Universal might hold off and keep it in theaters for a while. Oh, one other thing that I gotta mention about Knock at the Cabin, and I'll mention this I'll preference this by leading into Megan as well, but Universal is doing this thing I love with their public press screenings where, so here's the thing. At public press screenings, they will usually have, like, when you get in the theater, they will have, like, a still image up on the screen that just shows, like, the poster, the social media tags you use, when the film's coming out, all that information. And Knock at the Cabin had that as well, except they had some music playing with it, which is just, like, a little bit of, like, the brooding music that was going to be playing in the film with like some of like the nature that you would hear outside the cabin. So it's like, okay, I thought a little atmospheric. And then out of nowhere, you hear this loud knocking on the screen, and like the screen shakes. And it just comes out of nowhere. It just spooks you. And Universal, I didn't get to the Megan press screening, but apparently they did this at Megan as well, where they had a similar screen up. And just out of nowhere, Megan would just talk to the audience. Just say, thank you for coming to my movie. It's like, that's great. I love that Universal's doing this with their horror films. So that's definitely one reason I'm probably going to be seeing all their horror films this year. So. Oh, that's so much fun. And on that note, let's get to Megan. A sweet film about a toy. All right. Give me a moment here. All right, last film, and then we will talk about the Oscars. Okay. I'd get the notes up here, and let's see. And here we go. 3, 2, and 1. So, Megan, or Mathurigan, whatever you want to say, is the latest killer doll movie, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Megan here's the thing. Like, Megan feels like it could be like a film that could feel fairly stock. You know, it's an AI that goes rogue. You know, it's a toy that becomes sentient, and it wants to kill. And if that's what you're coming into this film for, you'll get that. You'll get your killer doll movie. But you also get a lot of fun and just very exciting moments in this horror film that realizes the absurdity that could be had within this premise. That it realizes the satirical elements and builds on them so well. So the premise of the film is that this toy developer called Gemma, played by Allison Williams, is struggling to make the next big toy, and decides that, oh, you know what would be a great toy? Having an AI that we could put in a kind of life-size doll that would be your best friend. It'd be great. No problems will happen with this. And of course, there are tons of problems with this. But she decides to keep working on this as a chance to kind of connect with this girl she's taking care of, Katie. You know, she's friends with, one of her relatives. Her parents were killed. So Gemma's now taking care of Katie, but Gemma, despite working with toys, has no idea how to connect with kids. So we realize, like, oh, well, if I just develop this toy, this will keep her occupied, and then she won't feel so sad about her parents dying. Basically, Megan becomes a pacifier. And Megan just becomes like a fascinating toy just because it becomes her companion. It does everything. It teaches her, and it plays with her. It has fun with her. It tells jokes. It does all the things that you would expect the AI robot to do. So you can immediately see that, yes, this is definitely like an allegory for the reliance on technology, for how iPads are meant to, keep children occupied, and also kind of to stifle emotional connection as well. Which was, for as blunt as that theme becomes, it's weaved so well in the story that I don't think it misses the mark. And it could have. I've seen so many films that stress like the dangers of technology and how the reliance on the iPad is going to be evil, and they all just kind of taper off on the same points and don't really build on that concept as well. And Megan, within this film, with this creepy doll, this AI doll, actually not only builds on it, but finds ways to have fun with it as well. Like, when you can have a film that has Megan doing musical numbers, like everyone talks about like the dance number before she kills someone, which is funny, but having her doing these musical numbers where she's singing are equal parts, like, they're meant to be sincere, and you can kind of like feel a little bit of that sincerity, but they're also hilarious just because you're watching this creepy doll sing this like just heartwarming and tender song for a child that you can't help but like love the absurdity at play here and the earnestness that comes with this premise. Like, this film doesn't shy away from the ridiculousness that you can have. It embraces it. It takes in all the silliness you can have with it, of how many different ways that Megan can kill people, the different ways that Megan can fight back, and just plays around with it, Because obviously, like, Megan's descent into becoming, the monster who kills people, pretty much comes about as advertised. She becomes self-aware. She becomes too self-aware. She starts learning about bullies and mortality and realizes that, I can defend Katie and be more of her caregiver and kill people in various ways, various unique ways involving poisons and what's the paper cutter blades, all manner of stuff. And even the dialogue that like Gemma has with Megan are so great, because like it's like their battles of like ownership over Katie is so great for how they bicker and argue and have these very bizarre but also like in the moment they make sense, and they build up on the general themes of taking care of Katie, and they work so well here, and mostly just because I think the performances are all great here, because everyone is kind of playing this more or less straight, but finding the moments of comedy that they can take out of this and work well. Like Ronnie Chang playing the egotistical CEO. You expect good jokes out of him, and he delivers plenty of great jokes out of this ridiculous character. And also gets one of the greatest deaths, because you have Megan doing funny dances here. And the themes work so well here that I think the film has put in so much work into finding ways to explore this premise and finding the different avenues to explore emotionally with the connection between humanity and technology, that it can have these ridiculous moments of like Megan fighting a giant robot and having her face melt off and turning it into, almost kind of like similar to like a Sam Raimi type horror movie, and the film can have all that, and it's so great because you can have fun with this, because the themes here are still working here. It doesn't feel like they're just kind of like the boilerplate, technology is bad themes. It feels like it's touching into something a little bit more here and still having fun with it, which you don't see as much out of many horror films. It always feels like it's usually kind of like one or the other. It's like you either have fun with the premise or you explore the deeper, darker themes behind it. And Megan can kind of have its cake and eat it too. It can still have this kind of iconic horror mascot. Like, let's face it, Megan is gonna be like the next horror icon alongside the likes of like Freddy Krueger and Chucky and Jason Voorhees. She's definitely gonna be up there. So it's no surprise that they're continuing on with more films with this character. Because and sure, like a lot of horror franchises, the more that we get down the line, it might get too silly and it might not be as interesting with trying to find more stuff for Megan to do. But in terms of what they do with the creepy doll in this film, with having her, rip off ears and slay people and just have this absurd tone to the way that she tries to reason how it's okay to kill people because she's all doing it for Katie, like it's all for you and all that. It works so well here that Megan, I had a lot of fun with. Megan is a lot of fun. I think it's still playing in a few theaters. So, Yokai Advice. Let's see. I loved this movie, and I loved the interaction with Gemma and Katie. It felt more sincere. I wish the film had 15 more minutes, because I felt halfway through the movie, half the movie was in the trailer. Well, all like the of course you want to put the kills in the trailer. And you don't see as many kills, obviously, towards the end of the film when Megan has kind of like gone off the deep end and to kill them all. So obviously you're going to have a lot more of the kills at the end of the film. But I was surprised how long it went, as long as it went as long as it did, with having like Megan have that throwdown fight, with Gemma, which is so good. The movements from Megan were really, really good. Yeah, the actress they got in there just was pitch perfect. Like, she really made you believe, that there's a creepy robot walking about amongst you. The other thing I loved about Megan is how she speaks, and Megan's syllables don't come out with what she's saying. Yeah, the other thing too is like, I loved how like she gets creepier as the film goes on. Like, you start hearing like little like glitches, and she becomes more mechanical in her voice towards the end there, which is such a great touch. Like, because if you want to make her creepier, like, you can do that with lighting, but you can also do it with just her voice and her demeanor and the way that she reacts. Just so good. Yeah, Megan's a lot of fun. Oh my god, I can't wait for more. I cannot wait for more. All right. So, after all those many movies that we covered, and I know I didn't cover them all, there's still like a lot coming. There's still a few more in January, and there's a lot more coming up February. We'll cover more of that. So let's talk about the Academy Awards. So it's award season, so obviously everyone is going to be talking about their best of films. I already put up my best of the year list. Which, if you haven't seen it, the ones I listed were, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. Turning Red. Like, I'm trying to remember the order, because I remember I shifted around the order a lot. It was Turning Red, Armageddon Time. Was it? I think I had After Sun, Decision to Leave, The Menu, Nope. Wait, I had Nope, and then I had Nope, and then Decision to Leave, and then The Menu, and then what did I have? I had Babylon, I had The Banshees of Inisherin, and I had RRR, and then I had Everything Everywhere All at Once. I got confused because, honestly, aside from like my top 4, you could rearrange those in any other order, and I would be pleased with it. Like, I debated so long what I was going to do. Are you doing Jesus Revolution? I'm trying to see if I can get a screener for that one. I'm trying to see if I can. I think I saw it on one of the press releases. I think I might be able to. I'll try to cover it. I know there's like, if you want to know what I'm going to be covering in the next few days, like, obviously there's a lot of stuff in February I'm looking forward to. I'm definitely going to be covering Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I'm definitely going to be covering Cocaine Bear, because why wouldn't you? It's Cocaine Bear. Like, because honestly, that's my most anticipated film of the year right now. Like, I know everyone's anticipating the Super Mario Brothers movie, but like, here's the consider what these films have. Super Mario Brothers, the movie, has a Mario who does not sound like Mario. Cocaine Bear has a bear on cocaine. The film is delivering what it promises. Also, the trailer is fun. I cannot wait to see Cocaine Bear. Yeah, it looks like so much fun. Okay, so like I said, the Academy Awards were announced here, and it's award season, and so everyone's kind of like looking towards what are the best films and kind of voting for what their favorite ones are. I am not a voting member of the Academy, but I do vote for the Online Film Critics Association and the Minnesota Film Critics Association. And as such, I have all the For Your Consideration screeners here from a bunch of different films. So I have seen all the films, all the big films, aside from like the short live action films and the short animated films, because usually there's a showcase of those somewhere around in February. There's usually a showcase that I can catch up on. So yeah, aside from that, I have seen all the films, so I feel the most credible in talking about what I feel are the best films. So here's the thing. I'm going to I'm going to go through the Academy Awards, and I'm going to tell you which films that I think should win and which films that I think will probably win. And this is mostly based on what, basically, it's based on how the Academy votes. Knowing the people that they vote for and having, seen, how voting has gone through in the past and what some of like the investigative like exit polling has been through there. So, all right, so I'm just going based on the Academy website. So let's see, we have So first we'll cover Best Actor in a Leading Role. So the nominees are Austin Butler in Elvis, Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, Paul Mescal in Aftersun, and Bill Nighy in Living. Now, in terms of which one was my favorite of all these, I would probably say it's kind of close because I loved everyone in this, but I kind of got to give it to I'm between like Colin Farrell and Austin Butler. I feel like I'm kind of gonna lean more towards Colin Farrell just because I think like it's a much more emotionally draining performance. I think like Austin Butler's performance in Elvis was great. It's very like physically demanding, but like Colin Farrell's was a lot more emotionally straining. Where I feel like that's my pick for the better film. In terms of which actor I think will win, it's definitely gonna be. I think it's probably gonna be Brendan Fraser. It's probably going to be Brendan Fraser, just because he's already on an award streak right now, and he'll probably win in that category. But if it's not him, like, based on the other nominations, it might be Colin Farrell. But at this rate, I'd say Brendan Fraser is, like, the easy choice there. Yeah. Let me see here. So let's see. So is Puss in Boots late? Well, do you mean in terms for, like, the Academy Awards? I think, like, Puss... I don't think... No, because it debuted in December, so it would have been eligible. I don't think it was eligible. Yeah, I don't think it was, yeah. Austin did really good. Yeah, Austin Butler did really good in Elvis. He's definitely one of the bigger surprises in films this year for a very young actor to take on that role. So it would not surprise me if either Austin Butler or Brendan Fraser won. Like I said, I'm kind of leaning towards Colin Farrell, and it's possible, but just based on the hype, I would say it's probably Brendan Fraser that's going to win. And if not, maybe Austin Butler. All right, so next up, Best Actor in a Supporting Role. So the nominees are Brendan Gleeson in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry in Causeway, Judd Hirsch in The Fabelmans, Barry Keoghan, I keep mispronouncing it, Barry Keoghan in The Banshees of Inisherin, and Ki Huy Kwan in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And at this point, again, this is another one of those like award streak ones where it's kind of easy to track. I think it's probably going to be Kwan. I think that performance has like the biggest buzz right now. It's probably going to be Kwan. Outside of that, I'd probably say Barry might have a shot out of that. But yeah, in terms of my favorite one is Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the Academy will probably vote for him as well. Which is great. It's a fantastic performance. It's great to see this actor make such a huge comeback here. So yeah, he will probably win for Best Supporting Actor, and just because I would love to see him win, just because it'd be great to see him up on stage and just see what he would say, and just like, I mean, Brendan Fraser and Ki Huy Kwan, after having been out of the spotlight for forever, and to come back and be up on stage, I just gonna feel like that's gonna be just like some great speeches, So those are kind of like the easier ones. Well, speaking of easy, here's an easy one. Best Actress in a Leading Role. The nominations in this category are Cate Blanchett in Tar, Ana de Armas in Blondie, Andrew Rice Burrow in To Leslie, Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans, and Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think this one's pretty much in the bag. It's going to Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett definitely gave one of my favorite performances of last year. It's definitely the best that she's been, and based on like the way that the Academy is voting, she's probably going to win it here as well. Um, Although like the dark horse, Riceboro, I think just because To Leslie didn't receive any nominations, it might be a dark horse. She might come out of this just because I think just for the fact that like a lot of voters will probably be firing up their press copy of To Leslie to remember like, oh, which was that film? Oh yeah, the one where that woman wins the lottery and then she pisses it all away and then she tries to find a connection. Yeah, that actually was a pretty good film. So she might, but at this point I think it's pretty obvious that Cate Blanchett is going to win for Best Actress. So now, Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and the nominations are Angela Bassett in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Hong Chow in The Whale, Carrie Condon in The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Stephanie Hsu in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And of these, the one that I'm pulling for, just because it'd be so satisfying to see her win, is Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. She dominated that in a film of so many great performances, like Michelle Yeoh and Ki-Hugh Kwan. Just she owns this film. Like everything she does, like her amazing outfits, her attitude, just the way that she bickers with her mother, the way that she kind of like embraces nihilism, all fantastic in that film. So I hope that she wins. In terms of who I think will win, it will probably be Angela Bassett for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, just because Bassett has a lot of kind of like, she has like a lot of gravitas, and she's definitely the best actor in that film. And plus she's got like a little bit of like awards hype. She's already won a few awards for that role. So it's kind of going to be close here. Like I feel like it's between Stephanie and Angela, but honestly, I think the safe bet is probably going to be Angela Bassett, just because her performance is so good in that film, and she has like that powerful scene that's like perfect for just like, I don't think the Oscars do it anymore, but just like usually they would pick out like that one scene to highlight that shows off how great they are and let the dialogue play. And Angela Bassett's is definitely one of the highlights there. So yeah, it's probably gonna. So I want Stephanie Hsu to win, but it's probably going to be Angela Bassett who wins. Jamie Lee Curtis was in that movie. You didn't even know that? It's because she looks so different in that film, doesn't she? Having the bob haircut and looking older, and she has that bigger belly that she sucks in at one point. Which, don't get me wrong, she did great in that film as well. It would be great. Like honestly, there isn't like, this is going to be the same for like a lot of these films, but honestly, there was not a performance in here where I'm not like, oh, that shouldn't have been there, because they all did very great, But yeah, I'm pulling for Stephanie on this one, just because it'd be great to see her up on stage. Okay, so the next category, and this is one that I usually say is a lock, because it's basically whatever film that families gravitated towards the most and watched the most, or just, whatever the kids watched, that this is an easy category. But this is actually a little bit trickier this year. So this is Best Animated Feature, and the nominations are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell, this is a tongue twister, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. This one's a little bit up there because, honestly, this is, there's no, unlike last year, there's no film from Disney Studios in this year. Like, aside from, like, yeah, Turning Red is Disney, but it's Pixar. And even so, like, this was a Pixar film that came out in March that was mostly just on Disney Plus. So, but yeah, this one kind of baffles me, just because there's no like obvious like last year was easy. It was Encanto. Everyone was watching Encanto. There's a huge marketing campaign. Everyone was watching Disney Plus. It was the big one. This one's a little bit trickier, just because A lot of people have been warming up to Pinocchio. There's a lot of like sleeper love for Marcel the Shell. Puss in Boots, everyone of course has been raging about that recently. The Sea Beast was actually a really cool surprise from Netflix, and Turning Red has just been another groundbreaking Pixar film. The best type of Pixar films that they should be doing. And of these choices, it's a little bit tough, but like for me, the obvious choice here is Turning Red. Turning Red was just a lot of fun. It was very heartfelt. It does stuff that I have not seen in any other animated film in terms of like tackling subject matter and just being like open and honest with like, you know, growing up and appealing to, you know, more of like the preteen and teenage audience. That's my pick for the best anime film. In terms of what film will win, it's tough to say because there's no like heavy one. They're all pretty good, and like you're probably going to get a lot of people talking about each one of them. I would say Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, just because it has like a little bit more of that appeal to adults because it's an A24 film. But I'm kind of thinking it might be Turning Red, just because like, you know, a lot of the draw for like best animated film usually comes to like the ease of access and the rewatchability of it. And I think based on the fact that like Turning Red was on Disney Plus, and there's been like a lot of increased traffic for that film since the nomination came out, I feel like that Turning Red might win. It could be Marcel with the Shell with Shoes On, but I feel like Turning Red might be the safe bet here. I mean, yeah, this is a hard list. Like, I did see Sea Beast. Sea Beast was a lot of fun. It might turn some people off just because the thematic elements are very on the nose about not trusting in governments by the end there. It's just kind of like, okay, I get the idea here. But it's still a fairly fun adventure film. It's very exciting. There's a lot of great action sequences in the Sea Beast. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a Netflix animated film. It's over on Netflix. It's by some people who have worked on bigger animated films, and it's a lot like Klaus. How like Klaus was like, you know, animators wanting to do something more out of passion, and then they go over to Netflix and they get to do it. And it's the same deal with Sea Beast. So like, yeah, like I like honestly, this is actually a really good list too, because usually like there's a few animated films you think that, okay, this one's definitely not going to win, but honestly, it might lead. Like I kind of have my doubts about Puss in Boots, just because like I could be proven wrong, but it's just like Puss in Boots came out so close in like Christmas that I feel like only like hardcore adult cartoon nerds are going to be watching that. Like and I know that, yeah, it's a bigger box office, but I think, you know, in terms of like you know, which film can you rewatch like right now? Like, well, you can watch The Sea Beast, and you can watch Pinocchio, and you can watch Turning Red. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, you kind of got to look for, so it probably won't have that much appeal for kids, unfortunately. Because this is a cute film. Yeah, Turning Red will probably win it. That Pinocchio movie came out at the right time, though, thankfully. Yeah, it came out perfectly around award season before all the other animated films swooped in, you know. Haven't seen Marcel the Show with Shoes On, didn't know it was A24. Yeah, it's surprising that it's an A24 animated film. Yeah, and it's adorable. It is. It's cute. It's cute. I think it's like maybe it might be a little bit too. Not quite. What's the word? Like, not quite quirky, but kind of I don't know. Like usually, like I said, in the animated category, it's usually whatever the kids watch, because like adults vote in this category, obviously, but most of them just go off on whatever their kids watched. And honestly, kids kind of have free reign of this right now, because like, I mean, Turning Red's numbers have been going a lot further up in the last week, so it very well could be Turning Red. It's and I'd be happy if it did. Honestly, I'd be happy if any of those films won, honestly, because there's no film I feel like, okay, it's just for kids. But honestly, if Turning Red won, I think it'd be great, just because it'd be a good incentive for Pixar and for Disney to realize, yes, these are the types of films that Pixar should be making and that you should be letting them make. Because it's a lot of fun, and it does stuff that I have not seen in any other animated film this year. That being said, it was cool to see Pinocchio address fascism. So, okay. A24 about to slaughter in 2023. I know. A24 films usually do pretty well in award season. So, let's move on to cinematography. Sorry, losing my voice here. So the nominations for cinematography are All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Elvis, Empire of Light, and Tar. I'm kind of torn on this one. I feel like this is kind of between All Quiet on the Western Front and Elvis. Just because I feel like those are like the bigger, flashier films that I feel might get more drawn into cinematography. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Empire of Light has Roger Deakins as cinematographer, which I love Deakins. And it'd be great, like Deakins already has an Oscar that he won, but to have him win for Empire of Light as well, I'd be cool with that. Like I said, a lot of these categories I'm cool with. It was just because I don't think Bardo, the new Inarritu film, hasn't been nominated for anything else, so I would kind of like to see it win, just because Inarritu's films are always amazing to look at, and Bardo is no exception where I'd like to see it. But just just based on the scale, All Quiet on the Western Front is just so mesmerizing in how it sets up everything that I feel like that's kind of the one I'm pulling for to win. In terms of what I think will win, it's a little bit of a toss-up, but I'm going to throw it out there and just say Elvis. I think Elvis is probably going to win for Best Cinematography. Probably. I think just because that's a safer bet. Because, like I said, for me, it's between All Quiet on the Western Front and Elvis. And I think Elvis might pull ahead with the voters to win. But hey, if Roger Deakins wins for Empire of Light, that'd be fine too. It's a good-looking film. It's not like that grand of scale. It mostly takes place at a movie theater, but it's beautifully assembled, All right, so Best Costume Design. For the nominations, we have Babylon, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. In terms of which film I think should win, I'm a little bit torn on this one. Just because I love the attention to detail in Babylon, but just the oh my god, sorry about that. But just like the range and Everything Everywhere All at Once and Elvis are just so like amazing in scale. Also, the attention to detail in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever kind of makes it a challenging one as well. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris It's got some good looking costumes. It's a little bit more subtle, but I think obviously it's going to get drowned out here because everything else, like with Babylon, Black Panther, Elvis, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, all look too flashy that I don't think that one's probably going to win. This is a tough call, really tough call. My personal choice, I would personally go with Babylon, just because of the attention to detail for everything that went into making that era believable, and just the outfits that they assembled for it. That I kind of got to go with Babylon. I'm a little bit torn because I kind of want to go with Everything Everywhere All at Once, just for the range and just the bizarre outfits that Stephanie Sue character wore. That I'm kind of pulling for that one, but I honestly kind of want Babylon to win. In terms of what I think will win, I think it might be Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think just because of like the lavish flashiness of it, I feel like that might actually win. And my second choice after that, if Black Panther doesn't win, it'll probably be Elvis. I think Elvis just has that allure of just matching that era. I kind of like I said, I like Babylon's attention to detail a little bit more, but But Elvis, I think, might be a safe bet. Yeah, between Elvis and Black Panther, but I'm fairly certain Black Panther will win for costume design. All right, next up we have directing. For Best Director, we have Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Scheinert. Did I say it? I almost said Sherbert. Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Osman for Triangle of Sadness. A little bit of a tough one here, but of course, I'm kind of pulling for Everything Everywhere All at Once in most categories, so I'm leaning more towards the Daniels for winning here. In terms of what film I think will win, I think I'm kind of leaning more towards the Daniels. Like, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great to just have, if Todd Field won for Tar, it'd be great just to have him get up on stage after having been, not made any films for so long. It'd be great to see him up on stage. But like I said, I'm pulling for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just I love their directing in the film. I love how they were obsessing over the editing and every little process, and yeah. So I'm pulling for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I feel like it's probably gonna win. Okay. Best Documentary Feature. The nominees in this category are All That Breathes, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, A House Made of Splinters, and Navalny. Now, of all these, my favorite one is definitely Fire of Love. Fire of Love is beautiful and just perfectly edited film about the life of a married volcanologist. Man, try saying that word. Who made great discoveries, and you get to see all the footage they shot, their interviews, and you get to track their life. And there's wonderful narration and illustrations, and it's just mesmerizing to watch that film. That I love Fire of Love. In terms of which film I think will win for Best Documentary, I think it's going to be All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. The film, just because that one has like a little bit more awards buzz, and feels more poignant about like pointing out like like the dangers of pharmaceuticals. And activism in general, that I feel like that film is probably going to win for Best Documentary Feature. I'm going to abstain from the documentary short films just because I haven't seen them all yet. I usually catch up on them later. Film editing. The nominees are The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun Maverick. This one's an easy choice for me. Everything Everywhere All at Once, just because the amount of editing they did for that film is just so detailed and so meticulous that they were breaking the editing program, trying to figure out ways to make it work better. And I think if you're going that far with the technology, you must be doing something right with editing. So that's going to be my choice. In terms of which film I think will win, I think it might be a toss-up between Elvis and Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I feel like it's going to be more noticeable that Everything Everywhere All at Once has the better editing. That I think it probably will win. So yeah, like I'm pulling for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it will probably win for Best Editing. Next up is Best International Feature. So the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front. Ooh. Hang on there. I lost the connection for a moment. Oh, there we go. It's back. All right. So the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina 1985, Close, EO, and The Quiet Girl. This is honestly between All Quiet on the Western Front and Argentina, and it's a little bit tough. I feel like All Quiet on the Western Front is easier to push as a war film, and I really loved it. But Argentina 1985 is just, it's the best courtroom drama I've seen in a long time, that I'm pulling for that film to win. In terms of which film I think will win, it's, like I said, it's between All Quiet on the Western Front and Argentina 1985, and I think I'm going to throw it out there. It it will probably be Argentina 1985, just because I feel it might be a little bit more relevant. And also because like All Quiet on the Western Front is nominated in a whole bunch of other categories as well. So yeah, I'm pulling for Argentina 1985, and hopefully, I'm pretty sure it will win. Next up is Makeup and Hairstyling, and the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Elvis, and The Whale. This is a little bit tough. I feel like... You know what the weird thing is? In this category, like The Batman, Elvis, and The Whale, these are all films trying to make guys look older and fatter. So I guess, like, the way to kind of judge it would be which film made them look older and fatter enough. So it's a little bit tougher. I feel like The Whale might get... It feels like it has enough awards buzz where it might win. But I feel like Elvis might be the winner in this one, just because of the attention to detail here. And outside of that, probably my second nomination would be like Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Because like I feel like I'm kind of pulling for Elvis just because I like the way it looks. But in terms of what will probably win, I think it might be Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I think. It's a little tough to say. Like, if the awards buzz continues, it'll probably be The Whale. So, I'm just throwing that out there. Let's see. Next is Best Music for Original Score. The nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. Now, in terms of which film that I want to win, I want Babylon to win just because Justin Hurwitz's score is the best music that I've heard all year. But in terms of what I think will win, you know, it's hard to beat John Williams, and I get the feeling he might win for this as well. So I think John Williams might win for The Fabelmans. But I'm pulling for Babylon. Hopefully Babylon can pull it out, you know. All right. Next up is Best Original Song, and the nominees are, Applause from Tell It Like a Woman, Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Natu Natu from RRR, and This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. This one's in the bag. My favorite is Natu Natu from RRR. And in terms of which one I think will win, it's Natu Natu from RRR. I don't know how anyone can watch that musical sequence and not think that's the best song of the year. You know, it has to be. And thank you so much for subscribing, Genya Kozlov. Thank you so much. All right, so we covered... We need the... Okay, I'm going to save Best Picture here because it came up in the Academy website. Let's get to Production Design. And the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, Babylon, Elvis, and The Fabelmans. A little bit of a tough one here. I'm kind of pulling for Babylon, just because I love how they engross you in that era and make it work. In terms of which film I think will win, it will... I'm kind of debating between All Quiet on the Western Front and Elvis. But I get the feeling, I don't know. I'm debating it, but I kind of feel like All Quiet on the Western Front will kind of pull it out here. And second to that would be Elvis. So, but I'm pulling for Babylon. Hopefully Babylon, you know. I'm going to abstain from short animated film. I've seen half of these, but not all of them. So, I'm going to abstain from that. I'll also abstain from the short films, although I have watched 2 on here. Yeah, The Peel and Irish Goodbye. Yep. So yeah, I'll abstain from that until I've seen them all. Next up is Best Sound. And the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, The Batman, Elvis, and Top Gun Maverick. A little bit of a tougher one here. I think just because they had to assemble so much for the world to make it believable, it might be Avatar: The Way of Water that will win. But in terms of which one I do want to win, I would say Elvis. I think Elvis, it's just like mesmerizing and how it engrosses you in that picture. That I feel like that's kind of the one I'm pulling for there. But like Avatar: The Way of Water feels like it might be up there. So a little bit of a tough call there, but I'm rooting for Elvis. Best visual effects. This one is easy. This is the easy. If you have to bet on one thing, this would probably be the easiest one to go for. So, best visual effects. The nominations, like just listen to this list and tell me which one you think has got this in the bag. So, best visual effects. Nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. Like I'll say what I think is going to. It's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. In terms of which one I'm kind of rooting for, as much as I'd like to root for like an underdog or something like that, I can't deny the Avatar: The Way of Water. The visual, like for just the motion capture and creating an entire world out of just shooting in pools and green screens, it works so well that you got to give it up. It's a James Cameron film. He always puts his work into visual effects. And what can I say? That one's in the bag. Next up is writing for Best Adapted Screenplay. We have All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, Living, Top Gun: Maverick, and Women Talking. Honestly, I feel like this might be the one, like, for as few categories as Women Talking is nominated for, I feel like it might win here. It might win. Because I do like the way that Women Talking is written. Like, honestly, when I first watched it, I didn't know that it was based on a book. The way that it was framed and everything, I would have guessed that it was based on a stage play. Because it could totally be a stage play. So I'm kind of rooting for that one. Outside of that, kind of rooting for Glass Onion, Knives Out, the Knives Out Mystery. Just because I think like it's a fun script, it's brilliantly written, and but like outside of that, what else? I get like if Living were to win, I would love that just because I think like Living is a good film. I think a lot of people are just gonna brush it off because it's like, oh, it's Ikaru. It's just Ikaru all over again. So what are you gonna do, But this one it's a tough call, but I'm kind of pulling for Women Talking, and hopefully it does win. Although if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say Glass Onion would win. Now let's get on to original screenplays. Nominations are The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. For as much as I'm rooting for Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think I'm kind of torn between The Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just because both are well written, but I feel like The Banshees of Inisherin perfectly captures this kind of like this odd sadness to it all that I feel like I kind of gotta I'm debating it like but I mean like it could be like with the awards hype, Everything Everywhere All at Once could pull it out here and it could win, but I feel like a safe bet might be The Banshees of Inisherin. I can honestly I'm torn between them. Honestly, it's kind of a tie for me for the screenplay between the two. And I feel like those are like the top contenders there. So I guess I'll say that. I'm pulling for Everything Everywhere All at Once, but the winner will probably be The Banshees of Inisherin. I hope I'm wrong though. Like I would love to see Everything Everywhere All at Once win. And finally, we come to the ultimate prize, the Best Picture nominations. And the nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun: Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. In terms of which film that I'm rooting for, this is obvious. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once. And honestly, I think it has the biggest shot. The only film that I could see possibly beating it out might be the Banshees of Inisherin. Like, I love the Fablemans, but I feel like it might, like the Fablemans could win. I mean, it has a lot of stuff that the voters would probably like. That I kind of lean towards that, but honestly, in terms of like the best films at the top of this list, it's the Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm debating it, but I'm fairly certain that this film has it in the bag. It's got the awards hype. It's got my goodness, I apologize. It has the awards hype. It has everything going for it. That I think it's a reasonable bet to assume that Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win, and I hope it does because I'm pulling for that. Pardon me. So, the event for announcing the Oscars, we'll find out the winners on March 12th of this year. So I'm predicting that I'll probably do a stream in which usually what I do is like I don't actually watch the ceremony per se. I just kind of like track the Twitter feeds, and then I just kind of like have conversations with people in between it. So we'll probably do something like that. But yeah, those are the nominations this year. And having seen all the big ones, I've got my picks. And by the way, I've already voted in the Online Film Critics Association. So hopefully my votes will show what we got there, and I will soon vote in the Minnesota Online Film Critics Association, which I'm more excited for because we usually tend to nominate good stuff. Like was it last year? I think we nominated Nicolas Cage for Best Actor, and he won for Pig, which I'm proud of. I'm proud that we did that. I'm proud of our association. So there you go. All right. So let's play a little outro music here. There we go. Okay, so quick recap of the films that we reviewed today. We reviewed Megan, a very fun horror film. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Plane didn't really take off. I don't care if that's a bad joke. It's not a very good action film. It's Gerard Butler just going through the motions of a film that needed a second draft and needed to go through post-production more. I reviewed 80 for Brady, which was it's passable, but it ultimately forgettable, kind of, old lady adventure comedy. It's sweet. It's not one I'd recommend, but it's not one worth getting angry about. Man Called Otto, a rather surprisingly heartfelt film with Tom Hanks in the lead role, and he plays a sweet little curmudgeon, and it manages to be better than the Swedish film that it's based on, and the book, by a little bit, just enough where I live it. And we reviewed A Knock at the Cabin, which is definitely M. Night Shyamalan's best film to date because it embraces more of the ambiguity than it does the twists. So thank goodness for that. Got a good M. Night Shyamalan. So Knock at the Cabin and 80 for Brady are going to be in theaters this Friday. If you would like to go check them out amid this, I think this is Super Bowl weekend, isn't it? Isn't it usually like the 1st February? I'm pretty sure it is. How does time work? Anyway, I will be back in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to stream, not 2 weeks from now, but like 2 weeks from a Wednesday, because in 2 weeks I'll be covering an early review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I will also, later in the month, be talking about Cocaine Bear. So we'll be talking about that. Yes, knock at the cabin or on the cabin? I'm screwing this up here. Knock at the cabin, yes. The iteration. So yeah, in 2 weeks I'll review the new Ant-Man film and also review Cocaine Bear later in the month. So definitely looking forward to that. So, oh, I can put up the credentials there. So if you'd like to read any of the reviews of the stuff I do on screen, I have written reviews over on movieswithmark.com and filminquiry.com and twincitiesgeek.com. You can check out all those places for all the written material that I do. In terms of what I got going on this channel, I have a few other video essays that I'm writing at the moment. Some of them are finalized. I just have yet to voice them yet, but there'll be more of those coming. I'm going to try to work on more of the Criterion videos just because I love talking about the many great films in there. But yeah, there's a lot going on. And yeah, award season's coming up. And eventually we'll be talking about the Oscars come March. Oh, and before I forget, because I usually forget this, I will be at Anime Detour in Minnesota this April. I will try to record some of the panels that I do there, but if you'd like to hang out, I will be at Anime Detour over in Minneapolis on, I think it's like mid-April, I think there. You can check out Anime Detour. I'm going to be doing lots of paneling there, as I have always been doing for the last, I just found out, I think Anime Detour's been around for like 20 years, so so I'll be there as well. So yeah, lots of stuff going on. So be sure to, if you like the reviews you saw here, be sure to like and subscribe and all that call out BS that everyone has to do. Yeah, and I'll have more video essays, and I'll have these reviews up as singular videos later. And yeah, I will catch you next time. So until next time, well, actually I'll leave these up for next time. So thanks from London. I'm surprised you're still up. Isn't it later over in London, I guess? Yeah, good to see you. So yeah, have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you in a few weeks to talk more about Ant-Man and more movies. So have a good one, everybody.